Hello everyone, I'm Francesca Mottola, a PhD student at the School of Sport, Health and Exercise Sciences at Bangor University. And today I would like to share with you my lockdown experience from Italy. So as I said, I'm doing a PhD and in December I completed a collection of my last PhD study and I was ready to get back home to complete data analysis and write up the thesis from here. So my thesis focused on the psychophysiology of endurance performance, and I'm working with James Hardy, Andrew Cook, and Anthony Blanchfield, and we did some study on the use of EEG neurofeedback and endurance performance. Basically, for those of you who are not familiar with this topic, EEG neurofeedback is a non-invasive technique to modify brain activity, and we basically use this technique before an endurance task, which consisted of cycling test, and in some of our data, we show that this technique can improve cycling performance. So after collecting this data, I was very excited to start data analysis and writing up the chapter of my thesis. So I booked my flight on the 22nd of February, and I was even more excited because I could do that at home in Italy and spend some time with my family. I lived in UK for 3 years and a half, so I was very happy to stay for a long period at home. And I didn't know that actually that day, so the 22nd of February, would become such an important day for Italians, and not because I was coming back home, but because on the 22nd they found the first COVID-19 case in Italy. This case was found in Codogno, which is a small city in the north of Italy, and the week after they found this first case, the number of cases in that city started increasing. So the government enforced the lockdown in that city that became a red area. So people from there couldn't get out of the city, and nobody can get into that city. However, they soon realized that the virus was ready to spread across the region, so they enforced the lockdown in the whole Lombardia, which is the region where Codogno is, and is also the region where I live, and also in Veneto, that are the two most affected areas of the whole country. And again, they soon realized that it wasn't still enough, because probably the virus was ready to spread across the country. So from the 4th of March, the whole Italy is under a complete lockdown. So what is complete lockdown is basically we can get out from home, and we can get out just for to buy food, so to go to the supermarket, to go to work in case you work in a hospital or in a supermarket, and in case we need a doctor. So these are just the 3 cases in which you can get out of home. And along with that, we can get out if we have to walk with the dog, or for any kind of disease that need just getting out for a short walk. And in particular, if you go out with your dog, you have to stay within 200 meters from your house. So as you can see, it's a very kind of strict lockdown. But I guess that most of it has been quite a hard decision to take for our government, because we are a kind of democratic country, and all the citizens here are kind of stuck at home, and it's probably not easy for a government to take this decision, take out all the freedom from the country. However, I think that most of the people understood how serious was the situation, and comply with this rule quite soon, because here in Lombardy, at least, most of the people who are affected by this COVID. So have kind of member of family who have had or have already this disease. So most of the people know how serious is the situation. And just to show you how the life change in here and how people comply with their lockdown, I show you a picture of my road, so where I live in before COVID-19, so before the lockdown and after the lockdown. So basically this is before the lockdown. I live close here, and this is how it looks like every day of the year and every hours of the day, probably, especially like around 5, from 5 in the evening, and I usually complain about how crowded is this road because I hate so many people around me, and this is how it looked like the right day after the lockdown. So this is a picture I took when I walk with my dog, and you can see there is nobody around. So the first day after the lockdown was enforced, I walked with my dog in the morning, and I found that the road that I usually find so full of people, just empty, completely empty, with nobody around. It was just me and my dog. And I think that was the moment I really understood how serious was the situation, and the moment really hit me. And from a work perspective, I thought that well, it wouldn't change much for me because I was planning to write up my thesis from Italy, so I would probably have to have like a online meeting and to work from home. However, it actually changed quite a lot, at least in the first weeks of lockdown, because I couldn't focus at all on my thesis. So every time I opened my laptop to work on that analysis, I couldn't my brain just couldn't focus on that, and I started seeking news and information about COVID. And from this perspective, I guess that doing a PhD or working in academia or just study at the university is really helpful, because it can teach you where to seek information, so where to find actually the information, or at least trustful information, because nowadays we are kind of bombarded about news and information from any kind of sources, and I think that when you have a kind of academic background, you can know where and where you can find the right information, trustful information. And especially like in this kind of situation, I knew that I could read a paper, and even if I'm not an expert on virus or epidemiology, I could understand what they were saying in that paper. And I think that's kind of nice skills to have in this situation, especially to understand why some rules are taken, and what is the best way to behave, what is the right way to behave, or what should be the right way to behave. So the first week, as I said, it was kind of hard to focus on thesis, and what really helped me this week was working for the Red Cross. Indeed, when I came back to Italy, I decided to volunteer for the Red Cross, actually before the COVID started. I started the training to become a volunteer for the Red Cross. However, my training stopped because of the COVID, because of the lockdown, so I couldn't complete that, and I thought that because of that I couldn't actually volunteering for the Red Cross during this emergency. However, because of the fact that we were in such an emergency situation or circumstances, they called me and they said that even if you didn't complete your training, if you want to, it's probably we need other people, we need more volunteers. So if you're happy to help, it would be helpful for to have more people to help, to volunteer. And actually, as soon as they called me, I was very happy, because the worst thing was staying stuck at home and getting all the news of people dying around you and not be able to do anything, just stay home. And so I get involved in this project, which basically we just provide support to people who are self-isolated at home and need, health assistance or need to buy food and they can't get out because they are self-isolating, and also to people who are more at risk because of the COVID-19. So people who have got disease such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or any kind of other disabilities that make them more at risk for this COVID-19. And so we provide help to them. And I think that something that is really helpful for those people, even more than the essential needs like food and drugs, is knowing that there are people ready to support and help them. So in this kind of isolation, I think for people who are more fragile, people who are in a who are more sensitive, just the idea of having somebody, a community to support them, I think is already helpful, and I think is already helpful because they feel less lonely, so they perceive less this kind of isolation they are in. And so this was really helpful. And after the first 2 weeks of lockdown, thanks also to this, volunteering, I could refocus on my thesis, and we planned with my supervisor online meeting that also were really helpful for me because I know that I have a kind of deadline and to provide them some outcome of my analysis. So they were really helpful because they really understood the situation here, but at the same time they provide support to keep going with my work, and also they keep the school help to keep track of the progress of the PhD and provide any kind of support to the PhD in this student in this during this throughout this situation. So it was really nice to see how they support our studies and during this period or in these circumstances. I hope like by the end of the year, even probably with some delay compared to what I expected, I will be able to discuss my thesis, and if not in person, at least on meetings or online. And I think that one message is I would probably share with you is this idea of creating human connection, social connection with other people that I think is really helpful in this social distancing circumstances, because especially people who are, as I said, more at risk or more fragile, or are experiencing more this who live just because they live alone, or for any kind of background, they probably need support, and the idea of creating this kind of human connection is probably helpful. Just a call or a short message is probably helpful. And to conclude, on May the 4th, so in a couple of days, our very strict lockdown will become softer. So basically, we will be allowed to get out to do something else. So not just staying within 200 meters from our house, but we can also train. And I'm really happy for that because I'm a runner, and I'm just looking forward to get out and have like a very long run. And I hope this is a message of hope, to show you that we are kind of recovering from this situation, and I hope soon all countries in Europe will. And that's everything from Italy, and stay safe, and hope to see you soon. Bye.